And good afternoon, guys. You are on the Barbell Nerds podcast right now with my co-host Will and myself, Sean, and we have Brandon Spayd of the Naval Academy joining us today. Thank you very, very much, Brandon, for taking the time to spend with us and chat a little bit.
Yeah, no problem, Sean. Appreciate being on.
Yeah, I know. So Brandon and I go back a little bit. He was my immediate superior whenever I was an intern way back in our Penn State days. And I'm still wearing the Penn State barbell shirt for you, my man. So I got that. But basically, start our listeners off with a little bit about Brandon Spayd, who you are, where you're from, where you got, or how you got to Navy, and take it away.
Yeah, so as Sean mentioned, so I'm a strength and conditioning coach and then technically a director of operations at the Naval Academy. I work specifically with our men's basketball program. Pretty unique position there at the academy. Actually, our coach was the one that kind of created the position and had the vision for it, which again, when I got the phone call from Coach DeCellis to come on board and to come to Navy, his vision of the position, I thought it was pretty unique and a pretty awesome opportunity. I'm originally from Huntington, Pennsylvania, small rural town, about 35 minutes away from State College. And I'm going on, I think this is year 11 in the profession total, 11 or 12. So I've been doing this thing for a minute now. Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, if so you're working with basketball. So I'm working with basketball at UND. Sean worked with basketball at UND. Is that the only sport that you're working with at Navy?
Yeah. So again, unique, right? You don't normally have that at most schools, working with one team in particular. And again, that was the big intrigue with me coming and pursuing this opportunity, was to be able to just kind of roll up my sleeves and focus on one sport exclusively. Again, I kind of have that dual role, so it's a little bit of administration work, a little bit of that, office work type setting as well, which, trust me, takes up a lot of time. But then training wise, yeah, I'm working with just our men's basketball team. And one thing to also throw out at you is we have, it varies year to year, but right now we have about 26 guys. So we almost have two teams worth. We have a varsity and a JV squad there at the academy. So
I didn't realize that. Holy, that's awesome. Well,
yeah.
It's interesting.
It is. Well, it is.
Yeah. So working with basketball exclusively, I know Sean can kind of relate to this, but working at UND, we all work with multiple sports, 3, 4, some people 5 sports. So we kind of have one foot in the door, one foot out with each team. So we're not at practice every day with our teams. We're not hooked up to like the polar or the first beat with each teams typically, because we have so many other teams and we're in different buildings going across campus all day. So when you're working with basketball exclusively, do you have a much more integrated role with the team other than just weight room?
Yeah, great question, Will. The answer to that is yes. And that honestly was, again, one of the reasons why I came, was because I wanted to be more integrated within the confines of the staff. I wanted to be in staff meetings each day. I wanted to talk to our coaching staff, help educate them on what I'm trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish in each, training cycle or whatnot, what the off season should look like, what in season should look like, all that fun stuff. And as well, I just think as a strength and conditioning coach, to have that opportunity creates value. And I think that's something that we all really, look to, obtain within what we do. I definitely have been fortunate in that regard, as far as working with only upwards of 4 teams at a time. When I was at UAB, I oversaw our men's and women's basketball programs and our men's and women's golf programs. And then going even back to my time at Penn State, I had only worked with 2 or fewer teams. So again, really, really very fortunate and lucky would be a word I would use to get those kind of opportunities. But I also learned and recognized really, really quickly and also spoke to, certain mentors of mine that kind of, helped enlighten me on as far as what you're looking for and what you would like to do. And again, just super blessed and fortunate to be in the role and position I'm in.
Yeah. So what does your kind of day-to-day role look like, especially on days that you're not training the guys in the weight room? Are you at practice, and are you like on the court? Are you doing rehab with guys? What does that look like typically for you?
Yeah. So days that we're not training, obviously at practice and travel with the team at games and all that fun stuff. We did just get a nutritionist just about a year or 2 ago. Scott Mayer,
Awesome.
great guy at Navy. But I've tried to, again, in that kind of that ops role, I kind of take that on, and I find I take thorough enjoyment in that aspect of the physical development program. I think it's a very, very valuable piece to the puzzle, so to speak. So being able to kind of help, I won't say completely control, because our guys still have to go eat over at the cafeteria, or King Hall is what it's called, with the rest of their company and or brigade. But about 48 hours before competition, as well as after competition, I'll kind of design and or make sure, we're putting the right nutrients in our body. So, and then to go a little bit further, Will, I'm just there for our guys, whether it's meeting with guys or the operations type of stuff. So that could be emails back and forth with other teams, making sure that they've done what they need to do to be able to get on the yard. Whether that's getting us our travel set. So pretty much, like a Dobo position. So
Okay.
any type of transportation, whether that's bus or plane, whether that's hotels, making sure things are booked, making sure we've got the rooms, making sure we've got space when we get there for meals and all that fun stuff. So again, like I said, a dual role, unique, a lot different than most strength coaches. Again, that was the intrigue of coming there and doing that. And again, just a little bit of everything, Will. Anything I can help with our staff and our program, even if it's, playing referee at practice or whatever, I'll do whatever it takes. So.
That's awesome.
That is a hell of a role. And I know Will and I both kind of worked with the same Dobo as I was going out and as Will was coming in as basketball strength coach. We both worked with a gentleman named Craig Heatherly, good friend of ours. But I envied, well, I shouldn't say I envied. I did not envy his role as Dobo. He did so much work. So, and I thought I did a lot of work as strength coach for a couple of teams. I can imagine the time that you must spend with your athletes, with those coaches. Sure, it makes for some long days, but at the end of the day, I'm sure you also have some really rewarding times with those kids, especially as cadets. So, can you just talk a little bit about how those relationships, since you're around them all the time, have made an impact on you?
Yeah, for sure. So again, that's one of the great things with working with a predominantly smaller team in basketball, right? So you're able to develop those relationships, which again, to me are, invaluable. These are people and student athletes and like our guys, midshipmen, that in my opinion, serve a greater purpose than necessarily what we're doing in the weight room, which is in and of itself an awesome thing. But B, to be able to just, train these guys to help prepare them, obviously, for specifically basketball, but more or less in life, to build and grow and to obtain these relationships are something that you'll just carry on for a very, very long time. And so, as you mentioned, spend a tremendous amount of time with our guys, whether it's just educating, teaching them, trying to learn more of the nuances of what their day-to-day looks like, because again, this is not like any other institution. that you would, work at. It's just not. It's just different. These guys have a lot of different, I'll call them stressors or strains, or just a lot more on their plate, so to speak, day to day. And so again, when you look at it through the scope of as a strength coach, you got to be very cognizant of what you're doing, how much, loads, volumes, intensity, all that fun stuff. And then obviously be able to manipulate your program on any given moment for any certain midshipman.
Very cool. Yeah, I think the role that you have is incredibly unique, not just because you train a basketball team with 26 guys, A squad, B squad, and the fact that you have the dual role, but you train some of the coolest people or some of the most well-respected people on the planet, people that are in the Navy, people, Army, Air Force, anything like that. Like, that is just the coolest thing on the planet. So how do you balance their training in the weight room for their sport with the other training and the other physical training they have to do, or even any other stresses that they have to do outside of their sport? Because that is it's a whole different realm.
Can I kind of add on to that, Sean?
Yeah.
Well, Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, but they have like physical training or testing they have to do annually just to be in the Naval Academy, correct?
Yep.
Good
question.
Yeah. So how do you,
Sean's
just kind of to bounce off Sean's question, how do you balance performance training for basketball, but also making sure they're training correctly for the Naval Academy and just for the longevity of that?
Sure. Yeah. Both phenomenal questions and something I've now learned much more in depth of how things work. And that's kind of what I was talking about there a second ago. So as far as they call it the PRT, the physical readiness test, right? And that's actually just recently changed, and they have to run 1.5 miles, and now they're going to hold a core plank and then do a certain amount of push-ups. And so I kind of use that as a tool in their training. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with having a great aerobic base. There's nothing wrong with showing core stability, and there's nothing wrong with showing some muscular endurance in their upper body, right? So I go ahead and take those 3, movements and certainly have it implemented as part of my, training phase in and out, woven in and out of our program, whether that be leading up into the fall, which we're coming off of basically an off season, or then in the spring, which we're fortunate enough to do ours after season, so I can help prepare them a little bit for that and get them kind of ready. So again, that's not obviously all I'm doing. I'm not just there to train them for that PRT, but I do try to help our guys put their best foot forward and get their best scores, because again, something that's a really big deal there is even in that PRT, they get a grade, they test, they're evaluated in everything that they do, which is again, a pretty awesome thing. And so their time is important. How many reps they get is important. How long they hold that plank, very, very important to these guys. So they take great pride in this, again, making my job that much exponentially easier. But so again, if I send these guys with an off-season program, there's going to be a dash of that stuff that's going to kind of help, acclimate them to being able to do or to adhere to, getting a great score on that PRT. Our guys as plebes, which is AKA is basically freshmen, right? They do a lot of training in the mornings, particularly. They'll get up with their companies and they might do any and all. Really, it's up to their company leader. So we do have days where our freshmen will come in and they'll say, "Hey, coach, I just ran, 10 miles this morning," or we just, did basically like a, 30-minute hit styled training session. And, just knowing what I know now and the experience I have here in particular, and then taking from other institutions as well, I just, try to use my best judgment. And so if we need to deload the kid for that day, or we mitigate or minimize kind of what we're doing in that strength and conditioning session, because there's a lot that goes on in that session. It's just not, straight weightlifting. I'll do that. I'll do whatever it takes to kind of, make sure that the student athlete's safe and put them in the best place to be successful.
If I had
Really
an
got to
athlete.
adjust on the fly. Yeah.
Yeah, if I had an athlete come to me and said our coach made us run 10 miles at 6 a.m. in the morning, I would go out for that coach. Like that's such a different stressor for me to wrap my head around, I guess. But you've done an awesome job since you've been there. I know you said, how long have you been at Navy again? I forget that. Sorry.
So this will be year 4.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's right. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, okay. Obviously, being in like a military environment is going to require a lot of psychological strength or mental toughness, kind of whatever word you want to use for that. And there's a lot of debate on whether or not like militarized training is going to prepare you for your sport, on the mental aspect, whatever. I don't think it really matters that much. But working with these kids who are in the military academy, in the naval academy, they have to be very strong-willed people. So can you just touch on how you work with these, how much easier, or maybe it's not easier, but what it's like working with these kids who are generally like-minded and self-motivated, highly driven people, that you don't have to always, get on their ass for not doing the right thing, I guess.
Yeah, Will, great question. I actually think sometimes it's a blessing and a curse. So we have these type A personalities, which again is an amazing and awesome thing to be around. And they want to always overachieve. And sometimes, again, you have to use your best judgment to kind of pull them back a little bit, pull the reins, for sure. Because, one thing that they will do, whether they know it or not, and I know they're 18 to 22 and they can go, and they can probably push through things a lot better than you can as you age. But, they'll overtrain a little bit. That's something that does occur a little bit. So, again, just using your best judgment, trying to have an open line of communication. Again, me being there all the time, as you guys had mentioned earlier, does allow me and instill or ingrain that trust factor, which is huge. That they understand that I've got their back and that I'm going to help them out and do what I think is best for them for that particular day and or training session or whatnot. So usually it's more of the holding them back and making sure we didn't do too much for the day versus obviously them, having to push these guys, because they're, again, everything they do, even I would say even before they get to the academy, they're already being evaluated, right? It's a very, it's a pretty big deal to be able to get, into the academy, especially academically and whatnot. So you're talking about kids that are borderline Ivy League academic type of kids. So they're smart. Most of them, again, culturally, it's already there for you. They already know how to train a little bit. If not, boy, you're going to know what that looks like, because every day at sports period, it's called, which is about from 3 to 6 o'clock ish. If you ever get a chance and opportunity to come to the yard, there are literally all roughly 4,000 members of the brigade. You're either, if you're a varsity sports member, you're obviously participating in your sport and or training, or whether you're in club or intramurals or whatever. The whole campus is physically active for about that 3-hour time frame, which again is a really neat and really cool thing that, again, if you haven't experienced it, you surely need to stop down and see. And it's different, again, very, very different. So it's already ingrained, it's already instilled a lot of that stuff. So again, makes it that much easier to be a strength and conditioning coach here, for sure.
Do you ever have kids that don't fit in culturally or psychologically with the rest of the group, and you do have to, push them a little bit harder?
Yeah. I mean, you're always going to have some outliers. It doesn't matter what sport. It doesn't matter, male, female. It really doesn't matter. You're always going to have a couple of outliers, but overall, in my experience with working in hoops as well, predominantly for the past 11 to 12 years, again, these are exceptional student athletes. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. That kind of thing. Very detail oriented. And, even we'll call them the misfits, or that's not even a good term to use, but the outliers of that level are still head over heels above sometimes some of the student athletes you may or may not have worked with at other institutions. And it's just a matter of fact.
Yeah. I think it's putting it lightly that when I say you're training some of the most important human beings on the planet from a respectful manner. I don't know. I've always thought, like, if I could ever redo my education for my undergrad, I would at least take a shot at the Naval Academy, just to see where that could lead me down the road, and the discipline and the culture that I would be instilled with, and how it would impact my life moving forward. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, just to go, further with that, and this is just me. And again, I would say this even if I wasn't here. But these kids are winners, man. They just are. They're winners in so many different aspects in life already. And again, it's just, for me, it's I just take a tremendous amount of pride in getting the chance and opportunity. It's such an honor to work with them because, again, they serve a higher purpose and, keep us, safe and all that good stuff. So.
Well, I only have one more question for Brandon, but if you got some more, go for it.
No, go for it, Sean.
This is a little bit off topic, but just for a little bit of background, Brandon is the one who taught me how to clean, how to snatch, how to do all that as a real young, raw intern. So Brandon, always thank you for that. But I know you've recently, at least over the last year or two, dove into some bodybuilding and kind of the learning of nutrition and how it plays a role in physical activity, recovery, performance, and everything along those lines. Have you used those things that you've learned? I know you guys just got a nutritionist, but have you used those things that you've learned entering the bodybuilding world a little bit into educating your athletes?
Yeah, 100%. I definitely have. I don't try to overstep my boundaries, right? So I'm not a registered dietitian necessarily. So I stay in my lane a little bit because I just think that's the professional thing to do.
Right.
However, I do feel very comfortable giving, I hate to use the word generic or general advice because I think I'm a little bit further down the line than that. But I think for the most part, 18 to 22-year-olds, 9 times out of 10, it's probably a caloric intake thing that we probably need to increase. We probably just need to look at certain food sources and clean them up a little bit. If you're probably a body comp type of individual. So, big thing for me is I take body compositions on these guys at least 3 to 4 times a year, either a DEXA, BIA, bod pod. So some sort of assessment. I try to keep it really, really consistent as far as the timing, keeping them somewhat, dehydrated and all that fun stuff so that we get again, hopefully a consistent number or evaluation, and then kind of go from there and sit down and really individually, because each one of them are different, right? In so many different ways, particularly nutritionally. And then try to kind of prescribe a little bit to them without, again, overstepping my boundaries. If we feel as if we really need to put a plan together, I send them to our nutritionist, again, staying in my lane, but overall just try to give them very sound advice and have kind of put in that physical development realm a systematic approach as far as when our guys come over, making sure they're getting calories before a workout, post-workout getting calories, talking to them about what they're eating and the choices that they have over at the dining hall. And then again, obviously, I get fortunate enough to oversee those things, particularly when we're on the road or before a home game, choosing those meals that kind of help fuel us up before we compete. So, but yes, me delving personally into a little bit of bodybuilding and understanding just more along the lines of just the biggest thing to me is the caloric intake versus the training and what we're doing and how do we manipulate these two variables to get the output that we want, particularly from a body composition standpoint, to allow ourselves to be to enhance overall performance, has certainly helped for sure. And I would advise any strength coach to try to, brush up on their nutrition and that and whatnot. Because I think, that was the one thing in my experience, whether it was a long time ago when I was a student athlete, or maybe even at the beginning of my career, that I don't know if I had as much knowledge, information, or tutelage and or mentorship on that aspect of the whole grand scheme of the pie, so to speak. And I wish I would have had that yearning desire that I do now to continually learn, whether it's personally or professionally.
Yeah, that's such a big piece of that pie. Like, you could literally put nutrition at the bottom, at the base of the pyramid of of performance. And if you eat like shit, your recovery's gonna be shit, your workout's gonna be shit, performance gonna be shit.
So actually, one of the first things I do with our guys, Sean and Will, when I get them, and this might surprise you, and I don't know if other strength coaches you'll speak to on your podcast, if they would say the same, or maybe they'd even tell me that I'm crazy. But when I put a triangle up on the board, one of the first things I do with our freshmen on that pyramid or on that board, we talk about recovery, but it's sleep. Second phase is nutrition, and the bottom of that is the training. Just because now, again, in my experience, it's really, really simple. You have to get enough rest, or what we do training-wise doesn't really matter, or we're never going to get anywhere. Then after we check that box, or we get great at doing that, which I know it sounds funny, but again, at the academy, if I told you how much stuff these guys got to do at the end of their day, if I told you the whole day, you would sleep is very exponentially more valuable there than anywhere else, because they just don't get it as well. Right. And then number two would be then their diet. Again, same thing. I can train any athlete I work with, but if they're not eating too well, it's not going to elicit the response we want again. And then thirdly, obviously, the intensity and or the variables of what we do and program or periodize is huge. But that to me is like the third element of that whole thing. So that's the first thing I let them know, that your strength coach is telling you, we got to get her sleep. And it's nothing shocking or surprising. These aren't things that people don't not talk to them about, but just so they know, that's the importance level to me. Got to get sleep, got to clean up and make sure you understand nutrition a little bit better than you do. And then obviously I'll help you out with the training.
Yeah, it seems like everybody knows that stuff, but that's the hardest thing to do, right? Like, to have the discipline to get the amount of rest you need and to eat right. Like, everyone, for the most part, has a general understanding of how important that is. But I know for me, I don't practice that very well. And a lot of the athletes that I work with probably don't either, but so,
What, so your Monster energy drinks aren't that good for you, Will?
Yeah, I do.
My Monsters, my Rock Stars, you name it.
I drive that home to our guys. These guys blew into the face, right? But that's what you have to do, or it doesn't, get through to the kids. And again, I always constantly try to put myself back in their shoes. And when I was 18 to 22, I loved, again, this is part of the reason why I'm here. I loved the training, loved all that. But I wish I knew how to continue to help myself out with that training by doing those things the best way I could have. So.
Well said. All righty. Will, anything else from a man, Brandon?
Last thing I got for you, now that you've been a guest on this, is there anybody that you would recommend we reach out to have a conversation with?
Yeah, I think just off the top of my head, probably, and maybe you've even spoken to him, but Cam Davidson, good friend of mine, obviously at Penn State. Sean would know. Love Cam. Great at what he does. If not, Mike Chapman out at Stanford, I think is a pioneer in our field right now. And yeah, I would even say I'm a big fan of our football strength and conditioning coach here at Navy. His name's Brian Fitzpatrick. Awesome guy. been in it for a very long time. I think Fitz does a phenomenal job with our football team and has helped, last season had arguably one of the best seasons in Navy football history. So those are just a couple of names. I could give you more, but I'll give you those 3 names. How about that?
3's more than enough, man.
Yeah, and I've been in Cam's ear a little bit, so we'll have him on here very shortly too.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for your time, Brandon. We appreciate it. This is awesome. This is probably one of the better ones. We have gotten pretty deep into your roles. You wear a ton of hats, both literally and figuratively, probably, at Navy, and I couldn't have asked for a better chat, man. It was great catching up.
Thanks, Brandon.
100%. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Will. I'll see you guys. Y'all take care now.
Take care,
brother.